Hey, friends of Two Crowns with a Mic. It's Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in, and we have a really good episode. A really good episode coming up about glimmers and triggers. And I'm going to let Indira do her thing if she feels like it
Yeah,
today.
absolutely. Welcome, welcome. So let us take this moment. If it is safe for you to do so, don't do this if you're driving down the road. But if you are anywhere else where it is safe for you to lower or close your mind, we're just going to come together as one breath, one moment, one heartbeat in this space. We join our hearts and our minds together, come together as community, as part of this human experience in this place and at this time. And we come together because we are connected by the experience of womanhood, of crowndom, of shaking off, releasing that which no longer serves us, and moving into that place of wisdom, knowing that everything that has served us, whether we keep it or not, provides us with that wisdom and that knowingness for this next chapter of our lives. So we go into today's podcast with an open heart and an open mind as we discuss emotional triggers and emotional glimmers. And take a nice deep breath in and exhale. And so it is. Welcome.
So it is.
Yeah.
Amen. So I guess a lot of people know what a trigger is. I'm hoping or I'm guessing. So
Well,
it's
I wonder that because I hear people
yeah.
say I got really, really triggered. And
Uh-huh.
and the important thing to remember about a trigger is that triggers typically happen when you have PTSD, and it
Yeah.
happens because it takes you into the traumatic experience. It's a trigger isn't just, oh, this person, kicked a dog and made me mad.
Right.
Like it's a trigger is legitimately an experience of something happening, somebody saying something, somebody
Mm-hmm.
doing something that takes you back in time to a
Mm-hmm.
traumatic event.
Mm-hmm.
So I triggered my roommate one time because I said I don't want to just half-ass it. And that was a word that her now ex-husband would say in the middle of major arguments that they would have, like big knockdown drag out fights.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he would be accusing her of like half-assing things in their family and their marriage. It was
Mhm,
his way of
mhm,
attacking her.
mhm,
And I was like, I just don't want to half-ass it. And she was like, and she, immediately went into this
mhm.
freeze. She went into freeze mode. And it typically does take us into fight, flight, or freeze when
Yeah,
we get a trigger.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that for me, I have a lot of triggers that comes from relationships, because if you had bad relationships or marriages, which I did have, unfortunately, um, there's a lot of baggage that you're bringing with you that you really haven't resolved it. So a trigger is really something that goes very, very, very deep down into your soul, something that you sometimes don't even know you have, you
Mhm.
know, but something happens or somebody says something and doesn't even mean it in a bad way, but boom, there it is, you're all upset,
Yeah.
and they're like,
Yeah.
why would you get so angry about that? Well, because
Mhm. Mhm.
it's my trigger, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I have an experience that I didn't even know was a trigger. Honestly. So I grew up with lots of older brothers and sisters. And while I didn't live with all of them at the same time, I lived with most of them at some point. And two of them had severe mental health issues. And at the time, we didn't have really great diagnoses.
Yeah.
This would have been the 70s and 80s. We didn't have great diagnoses, and we absolutely did not have great medication for them.
Mhm.
And so they would um, have episodes where a lot of violence, angry words, plates flying at dinner, things like that would happen. And I would often find myself like sitting under the kitchen table, like, hovering with the dog, under the kitchen table. And recently, within the last, 4 months or so, a dear friend got off of her regular routine and failed to take her medication for a significant health diagnosis,
Yeah.
mental health
Mhm.
diagnosis.
Mhm.
And I did not know how triggered I was. And basically, the agreement came between me and two other friends
Mhm.
that, or three other friends, that I would, because I lived the closest and I don't have family here right now, and that I would basically kind of be her primary caregiver while we got her back on her meds. And so that's where I was. I was checking on her every day, picking her up to do things, because it happened to be a big social weekend. And when we got back to work on Monday, I remember like yelling at one of my coworkers who's also a friend. And I was like, "Where were you guys all weekend? You left me to take care of her." And I was completely triggered, freaked
Mhm.
out.
Mhm.
And and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I see what's happening with you right now. Do you wanna tell me about the event that occurred that caused this trauma in you?
Mhm.
That's making you have this trigger?"
Right, right.
Because I'm yelling at her,
Mhm.
and I was mad, and I was feeling I was
Yeah,
so
yeah.
done. And because they had, she has kids, and the agreement, yeah, there was the agreement was that everybody would kind of chip in where they could, but or pitch in where they could, but nobody really, really stepped up to help with anything. Even like we were all at a party Saturday night. They're like, "No, it's our party. We can't go anywhere." And so, you're on your own. You have to go find her because she had disappeared for a little bit, and it was
Oh,
really
wow.
scary. And so it was just really bad. So I was like going off on them, like, "You guys left me alone. This was not okay."
Mhm.
And of course, I wasn't that calm and nice.
Sure.
But I was super triggered because it took me back to a time when I did not know how to take care of my big sisters who were having these diagnoses. The blessing is that this person did not become violent like my
Mhm.
sisters did, but I didn't know that. And not only did they not become violent, they were like the opposite. They were like a puppy. I was
Oh,
like,
well,
"So you
that's
ready to
good.
take like, can you take your meds?" And they're like, "Yeah, no problem." Like it was no big deal. And we got through it all. It took a solid like 3 weeks for them to get super stabilized. And I'm never sorry that I show up for people when,
Yeah.
when somebody needs to, but that was a huge trigger for me. And I wasn't just triggered in the moment, I was triggered for days. And so
Wow.
then it took me a whole weekend of like sleeping to recover from it
Wow.
because my brain was constantly, I'm just reliving over and over. I had a therapist one time describe it. She said, anxiety attacks, triggers, things like that last for about 90 seconds. But if your brain doesn't feel like it's safe, it'll keep pushing that button and you relive that 90 seconds until your brain stops pushing the trigger
Wow.
button. And I
Wow.
think I lived it for like 6 days.
Oh my gosh, that must have been hard.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I was
Yeah,
exhausted. Yeah.
yeah.
What about you? Do you ever like
You
what is one
know,
of the triggers you have from your marriage
so my marriage,
or
I mean, a big
marriages?
marriages, yes. I was married 3 times, just to be open and honest, but
Samesies.
yeah, it happens, life happens.
Mhm.
One trigger was one thing. I mean, I have more than one, so don't get me wrong, okay? But one
Yeah.
that really stands out is like this passive aggressive punishment. If I don't do what he wanted, okay, or if I don't behave the way I'm supposed to, I guess, supposed to, then there's punishment. So if we had a dinner planned or something, or we had plans in any way, and something happened, okay, that he didn't like, all of a sudden it's like, we're no longer going there. Okay, you did this or that, and no, we're no longer going. I'm not going with you. You can go by yourself, but I'm not going with you. So for me, my trigger is always like, I feel like I always, not always walk on eggshells, but it took me a long time that this was him doing this to me, and not everybody reacts that way. Just
Yes.
because we have something planned, or maybe I go out with a friend and something happens and they're like, oh, Bettina, I wish you wouldn't have said that, or something stupid. It doesn't mean that all the plans are ruined, but immediately, if I feel like I'm doing something wrong, or I don't, or I didn't, I mean, I'm pretty much over it now because I've recognized the trigger, and I'm still healing from it. But before I realized that that's one of my triggers is, um, I was a people pleaser. I wanted to make sure nobody gets upset, or else there will be punishment, or some form of revenge, if
Yes.
that makes sense. And
Yes.
so that's a big one. I feel like that a lot of people have that, or at
Mhm.
least in some way, shape, or form, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I definitely have more than one trigger. But I guess healing from them, the first thing you do is like realizing, that that's what it is. That's
This
a
is my
trigger.
trigger. Yeah.
This is my trigger. This is one
Yeah.
of them. Yeah.
You bring up something because I think the next step is practicing understanding that it's a trigger the next time it happens, and
Mm-hmm.
creating and trying to create a safe space for that for yourself
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
for others. So, and it's interesting. I just recently read something that said the only way that you are going to heal your relationship wounds is by being in relationships.
Serious? I don't think I'll ever heal then, because there's no way I ever. I don't
Yeah,
want to. I don't want to be in a
that's what,
relationship.
and
Maybe
I
that's
say
just my hyper independency now, because I just don't. I want to be away from it.
yeah.
Nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I well, and when we've been wounded so many times in relationships, sometimes we do become that hyper independent.
Hmm.
I've got a lot of friends who are single right now, and
Hmm.
they're like, I just have to heal all my relationship wounds. So when I get into a relationship, I won't be wounded. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I don't think that's how it works.
Huh.
Just like my wounds around money.
Hmm.
I didn't stop spending money. I just had to be aware of, like how I felt about money when I was doing it,
Yeah.
and to kind of redo
Right.
the inner dialogue around that, right? And so for those of us who have relationship trauma, part of healing that relationship is when you start a relationship being able to say, I have a lot of relationship trauma and
Hmm.
this is going to be work for me. And if you think that I'm worth it and you think that this relationship is worth it, this is what we're going to have to do together. And then you have to be willing if they're not, because like I remember doing that in one relationship. They're like, no, I'm totally here for you. And then they totally weren't, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
So you got
Of
to be
course. Yeah.
willing to say, yeah, this isn't going to work for me.
Right.
I
Right.
need to go, but you still learn. You learn how to
You're right.
stay, not still be that people pleaser, not try, give up your own identity in it, maintain your identity but heal your wounds around, whatever it was that happened in your relationships.
Hmm.
Yeah, but the only way you're going to heal your relationship with food if you have, an eating disorder is
Yeah.
by having a healthy relationship with food, and it's not about giving up the food, you've got to do it. So yeah, it's when you recognize your triggers, yes, first is the recognition and the acknowledgement, and the second is, now who do I get triggered around? How do I let them know that I have a trigger around this particular thing? And how do I create a safe environment for me to heal this trigger?
You're so wise. You're so
I'm
wise.
old. I'm a crone.
Yeah,
I have
I
a
know.
lot,
I am
and I
too,
and
but
I Yeah, but here's the difference. You've been married and divorced 3 times. I got married and divorced 3 times, and I got remarried again. And this time, I was I literally had 1 foot out the door
Mhm.
for the first, like, 3 years going, "This is my trigger. This is what's gonna happen," but being ready to bolt because that was what I didn't do in the other 3. I would come in, I'd be like, "These are where all my wounds are," and then I got no, I no
Mhm, mhm.
support, wasn't able to, and then I just bounced back into my wounds.
Hmm.
And this time I was like really, really, really ready. And I was like, all right, these are where my triggers are. These are my problems. These are my non-negotiables. That's another thing. We have to, if we're going to be in a relationship, you got to show up with your non-negotiables and say, if
Yes.
you're going to be in a relationship with me, these are things that are not an option.
Yes.
Mine
Good one.
absolutely, like, one of mine, and this may sound, but keep in mind, everybody's marriage looks different, right? Everybody's
Yeah, of course,
relationship
of
looks
course.
different. One of my non-negotiables in my marriage right now is neither of us can have friendships of the opposite sex
Mhm,
outside of our marriage. So if
mhm,
I have a friendship with a male, my husband is in that friendship with that
mhm.
male. Now that I'm not talking about coworkers, I am talking
Yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
male friendships. So if I go out to dinner with a man that is not my husband is also invited to the dinner,
Mhm.
and if he cannot make it, then he's the one who says, "I can't be there," and go ahead and go without me.
Right.
Because I've had way too much wounding around losing trust in relationships, and this is what's healing my trigger.
Yeah.
This is what's healing my, "Oh, well, that's just a friend,"
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
it's healing that, and it's healing it for him as well because he had had somebody cheat on him one time, and while he trusts me implicitly, I don't ever want there to be doubt.
Yeah.
So that's one of our so if you are a friend of mine and you're opposite sex, you're a friend of his, and if you are gonna invite me somewhere, you invite him somewhere, and if he's not invited, then I'm not your friend.
Wow. That's a big one. That's a good one. That's a good solution, actually.
Yeah.
My 3rd husband, that's what he was all about, you know? I mean, not in a good way, but
Mhm.
he had, like, uh, countless female friends, you
Friends,
know?
right,
And he was out
right.
to lunch, like, all the time and texting all the time, and it always created an issue, and he
Yeah.
was not willing to acknowledge that, you
Mhm.
know? And so that was a big thing. That was a big issue,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that is my non-negotiable,
Yeah.
and my husband has non-negotiables.
Mhm.
He is absolutely monogamous.
Mhm.
Knew it from his 20s. 1 man, 1 woman, that's all I can do. I don't, I'm not gonna share you, you don't share me, we don't have people on the side.
Yeah.
And that is his non and I was like, "I can do that, obviously." So,
Yeah. That should
yeah,
be I mean, for me, that's like a no-brainer, you know?
right,
I
but
don't even know
there
where
are
people take the time and the effort and the energy from to have more than one. I mean, I can't even work myself up to one person, you know, let
It's
alone like
ridiculous,
2 or 3. It's like, how do you guys do this? It's
right?
just I don't know.
But I think that's what we have to do in all of our friendships too. So
Mhm.
I have a friend she's just really, really wise and really great with relationships. And she'll say, Indira, this is a non-negotiable. This is a boundary.
Mhm.
And I just can't do this because otherwise it will trigger her and it will take her into her. And this is how she's going to heal it is because
Mhm.
part of healing our triggers is by creating safe places where we didn't have safe places
Mhm.
before. Triggers are from
Correct.
trauma. And so
Yeah.
we have to rewire the brain into realizing that that is not something that it has to protect us from any longer.
Wow. Once again, you're so wise. I'm learning so many things from you, though, you know?
Which that then
Yeah.
that leads us to glimmers because
Yeah.
glimmers they're not exactly the opposite of triggers, but glimmers are those moments of absolute pure joy and peace and realization that you are one with either your divinity or God, whatever you want to call it, or with humanity. But it's just that moment of absolute connection,
Yeah.
right? It's that good, sometimes it's that moment when you're looking at a sunrise or a sunset and
Hmm.
you're so lost in the colors and you're just like, everything is a miracle. You have that recognition, like that is
Right.
a miracle. And I'm witnessing a miracle right now.
Yeah. So I guess a glimmer is like the feeling of complete happiness in that moment.
Mhm. Yeah.
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 That's not something that you have all the time. I don't think anybody
Mm-mm.
really feels like this like 24/7, you know?
Absolutely.
I mean, I would say you're content and you're okay with your life. And then you have
Mhm.
those glimmers that just come up every once in a while and you're like, oh, this is a good moment. I'm just so overjoyed, you know?
Yeah.
And
And they're like everyday things that happen. It's not like, all of a sudden you win the lottery or something. That's not a
mhm,
glimmer. That's like an amazing emotion. But it's those,
yeah.
and this is the definition, small, spontaneous moments
Hmm.
where you feel calm, peaceful, present, joyful, or all of the above.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking, don't wait for those glimmers to just happen. Make them
Mhm.
happen for yourself.
Try to make them happen. Yeah.
Try to
Because
make them
because
happen.
you and I have talked about how I like to say, oh my God, I hurt my own feelings. Like I
Hmm.
hurt my feelings yesterday. I literally did. I had a bad day yesterday. I had a rough day yesterday. And I made it almost all the way to a client's house and realized that I was missing like half the stuff I needed. And I was like 45 minutes away from my house. And I just had a complete emotional meltdown on the phone with them. And as I was rescheduling, and it could have all been resolved if I had just made a list before I left and made sure that I had everything on the list, right? So I hurt my own feelings. And sometimes we hurt our own feelings and we trigger ourselves all at the same time. And so we've talked about if we can trigger our own selves,
Yeah.
can we glimmer ourselves?
You've got to sprinkle that stuff on you as much as you
Yeah.
can.
You really, really do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So talking about so yesterday, I didn't exactly trigger myself, but it actually kind of did. So sharing how like I hurt my own feelings. So I did not make the list of everything that I needed. I only took half of what I needed.
Mhm.
And I was already in a really low emotional state. I've got
Yeah.
making a lot of decisions right now. There's a lot of things around me that are crumbling. And I've got some big life changes that are happening very, very soon. And so I'm already a little stressed. I'm not really taking care of myself like I should.
Mhm.
And I, um, forgot everything, started bawling and headed home. And I realized that I was really hurting my own feelings and I was really I triggered myself because I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not eating
Mhm.
right. I'm not
Mhm.
exercising like I should. And then I did not make my list and I was not organized and I was not planned out. And it was just all at once. And I hurt my own feelings and I triggered myself. So I spent the rest of the afternoon in this state of emotional instability because I am worried about the future.
Yeah.
Because my life has always been really
Mhm.
kind of topsy-turvy. I've actually been housing insecure multiple times in my life. I have been job insecure multiple times in my life through, sometimes it wasn't even through acts of my own, there were just things that had happened, and all of that is kind of up in the air right now,
Wow.
and it is triggering me in a major way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah. So,
Very.
but with what you're saying, and a lot of it
Mhm.
I did to myself because I have ways to take care of myself.
Mhm. And
I
you have
can
the
choose.
knowledge. I mean,
I have
you are such a spiritual being, you know? I mean, it's like,
not,
we do
and
know what to do,
mhm,
but sometimes even our humanity comes through, I guess, where
it does.
our
Yeah.
ego is trying to trip us. It's like, wait a
Mhm.
minute, I know what to do, and I tell other people what to do. So maybe I should just take my own advice every once in a while. But that's the
Exactly. And at the
hardest
same
thing
time,
to do.
It is, and accepting responsibility, saying, "Okay,
Mhm,
I didn't do it, but I know I could." But then when we do the opposite of that, when we are in that when we're trying to manifest or align with those glimmers, it
mhm,
is because we are taking care of ourselves. It's because we're making the lists, we're doing the exercise, we're organized, we're, all the things that we have the moment to stop and look and breathe and have
mhm.
that moment. I just had one out on your sofa a little bit ago with your dog because
That's true, yeah.
she put her head on my leg, and I was just like, "Oh, this giant beast of a dog is loving on me right now." She's such a big
Well,
dog.
I'm glad she does it for you because I'm nobody when you're around. Just know that.
I
I'm
appreciate that.
nobody.
There's my glimmer for the day.
Uh-huh.
My glimmer is your trigger.
Yep, yep, there you go. And sometimes I think, when I'm in a funk, I'm trying to recognize when I'm in a funk, and I really try to pull myself out of it because I don't like that feeling. I don't like to feel sad and depressed. Okay. And it's very easy to just give up and say, I don't care and the world hates me. But I really don't like that feeling. So I'm trying to be better for
Mhm,
myself. And I'm trying to always figure out when I am in a funk like that, what can I do for myself that would make me happy? And
mhm,
then I think about what was it? Because, when I was a kid, I was very happy. I mean, it's
mhm,
like, why was I happy when I was a child? Well, because I didn't have any responsibility, obviously, but
mhm.
what made me happy on any given day? And then I think ice cream. So why don't I go and get myself some ice cream, not just eat the damn ice cream? And then I think, why don't they have playgrounds for adults with like big
Mhm,
swings and big slides and all that? Because
mm.
the nerd in me, I would go there. You would find me there in the,
I would totally
swinging,
swing.
swinging and sliding. It's like, it's just stuff like that, just being carefree and, those happy moments.
Mhm.
And I just try to recreate those for me when I need them.
I love that. I still get stuck. We talked a little bit ago and you said I tried to do something to get myself out of it, and I was like, "I am not there yet."
Hmm.
Like, it's not for me, it's not so much about getting myself out of it as it is making sure that doesn't happen again. Trying to, make all the plans so it doesn't happen again. But I do think I love the people like you, and I have several friends who figure out what would make them happy. What are the things that they need to get up and make themselves do even if they don't feel like doing it?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That takes
So,
effort, actually. It does take effort, but for me, it's worth it because I just don't like that feeling. I don't like the feeling of desperation and not knowing, when I will feel better. I have to be able to do something about that.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that helps me.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Well, it's interesting. Neither of us have a psychology background, but both of us have been in therapy for long enough. We probably should. Um,
you're right.
but the first few episodes, we are talking about a lot of psychology aspects. But the truth is, we're just setting up
Mm.
the what this is going to be like because we're going to be talking about our experiences.
Oh
As
yeah.
we're moving into our wisdom years. The all of the patterns and the programming that we've had and how
Mhm.
we're deprogramming and how we are uh, you know getting rid of those patterns and the glimmers and the triggers and all of it. It's all part of that wisdom because when we have wisdom around ourselves and what we're going through, then we can have wisdom around what everyone else in the world is going through
Yeah.
as well. And then it no longer affects us because we realize it's not about us.
I think it's a release too when you talk about it. It could be as
Yes.
easy as just, this is my trigger,
Mhm.
and now we talk about it, and that helps too. You
Yeah,
know,
I completely agree.
it's a way of releasing
Yeah. Yeah.
trauma.
They say that women need to repeat their story like so many times. I thought it was like, I don't know, it's like anywhere between 12 and 36, and I can't remember exactly. But women need to repeat their story so many times before they really get to the end of it, before they
Mhm.
can really get to the acceptance and the healing around it.
Yeah.
And so it's important for us to have a community where we can talk about what is going on inside of us,
Mhm.
and how we are responding to, being aware of, and responding to those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I guess with this podcast also, we would like to create community, right?
Mhm. Very much
And
so.
so I want to encourage you guys, find what I notice and what people talk about is women need other women as friends. And
Mhm.
it's really not just to gossip or whatever. It's really there's really a bond that's being formed, and it's there for support.
Mhm.
So if you do have a trigger and you have a really good or strong circle of good friends and women, that helps immensely.
Mhm.
So
It sure does.
if you don't have that, go out and make friends. Indira, I think you're the one who talked about how you make friends, right?
I do. I'm very much like a kindergartner. I will walk up to somebody, I will, hang out with them for a little bit, like, in a certain situation, maybe we're maybe at work where, I even had somebody that I did somebody invited me to do a Reiki session on them, and then I invited them, or they invited me to come and do a massage, and eventually, at some point, I'm like, I think we're supposed to be friends, just like kindergartners do, like, "Do you
Yeah,
wanna be my friend?"
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what we do.
I guess
Yeah.
that's another program we just really need to unlearn. You just go and do it.
Yeah.
Just be
We
somebody's
think
friend.
we think as adults that you can't make friends like you did when you were kids.
Hmm.
And I think we think that because we've been wounded by so many friends
Yeah,
throughout the years, and so many friends have come and gone, and lots of times we don't think we have time for friends. But I I need my girlfriends. I need women in my life. I need strong women in my life who I can support and who can support me in times of need. And so I do. I'm like, and I don't just walk up to any old random woman, but after I spend a little time getting to know them,
sure.
either
Yeah,
in a work
sure.
environment or, something like that, I'll be like, do you want to see if we want to be friends? Like, let's get
Hmm.
together for coffee and see
Yeah,
if we can be friends.
yeah. And I did blend in our email. So on the bottom, that's our
Yes.
email, twocrownswithamic@gmail.com. We would like to really create a community. So if you
Mhm.
have questions, if you have concerns, I mean, like I said, we're no
We're not experts.
therapists in anything, but we
No.
have experience, and just
And
email
you all
us.
have experience. Yeah,
Yeah,
you have we would
we
love
can.
to.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
learn from each other.
Yeah, we would love to hear your emails, see if we can incorporate that into
Mhm.
one of the shows. If you um, have anything nice to say about us, we welcome that. If you have anything mean to say, keep it to yourself. Thank
Because we get triggered too.
you. And we're all in this life
We're
together.
sensitive.
We are so
We're
we're
sensitive.
sensitives, and we are sensitive.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, yeah, do you have a card to close us out with today?
Let's find one and see what it says. Shuffling, shuffling, shuffling. So I got the medicine mother. So again, it's
Oh,
the mother. Okay.
yeah.
Maybe there's a mother or nurturer in all of us. And
Mhm,
so I definitely feel like I have that inside of me. We all do in a way. We want to nurture other people and help each other. And really that's the community we're trying to create here with this podcast, right? Where we can nurture each other. And it
mhm,
also says honor your inner knowing. I mean, deep down, you know what your triggers are. You know what where it all comes from, and let it all out. Okay, let it out so it can heal. In order to heal, you have to take something out of the darkness and bring it into the light, and you
mhm.
bring it into the light by talking about it.
And
Okay,
practicing it. Yeah.
and practicing it. And so
Making it safe for you to practice it.
yeah, And a lot of times as a woman, we're like, "Ugh, I'm just crazy. I'm just making it up." No, you don't. Okay, you don't. If that's a feeling that you have inside of you that needs to come out, talk about it. Talk about it and let it out. And email us if you feel like it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone.